All right, good evening, and welcome to a joint session of multiple entities this evening. Before we get started, I'm just going to run down a bit of what the evening will look like. We have four separate meetings this evening. The first meeting will be for the Urban Renewal District Budget Committee. The second meeting will be for the City of Grande Budget Committee. The third meeting will be a regular session for the Urban Renewal Agency alone without the Budget Committee. And the fourth and final meeting will be a regular session of the City Council, again, without the Budget Committee. It's kind of complicated, but it should flow pretty smoothly. Before we get started, I'd like to welcome back Councillor Bosarth and extend my condolences to you and your family. I'm welcome.
Thank you.
Good to see you, John.
Thank you very much, Steve. And trust me, we really appreciate all the thoughts and prayers that you've offered during this last month for us. We've really appreciated it. So thank you very much.
Okay, good. With that, Sandra, could I have a roll call vote of the Urban Renewal District Budget Committee?
Sure. Steve Clemens.
Here.
Gary Lillard.
Yes, here.
John Bozar.
Here.
David Glabe.
Here.
Nicole Howard.
Here.
Marianne Miesner.
Here.
Justin Rock.
Here.
Greg Amer.
Here.
Matt Barber.
Here.
Edward Henninger.
Here.
I believe he is excused. Scott McConnell. He is also excused. Ashley O'Toole.
Here.
Was that? I think I heard here.
Ashley O'Toole is here.
Thank you, Ashley. Corrine Dudo.
Here.
And Max is also excused.
And just a very quick correction. Ed Henninger is here.
Thank you.
At least I see him on one of the what do we call it? What was that game show where Hollywood Squares?
Hollywood Squares or the Brady Bunch.
Very good. So just for the committee and for anyone who may be watching the live stream, we have one purpose this evening for this meeting, and that is to approve the minutes of the May 10th Urban Renewal District Budget Committee meeting that took place. And that item is being handled in a consent agenda. So unless someone wants to pull it for editorial or content reasons, we can handle this very quickly with a motion to approve the consent agenda. Do I have a motion?
I move we accept the consent agenda as presented.
I'll second that.
All right, so Marianne made the motion. Looks like Matt second. Could I have a roll call vote, please?
Steve Clemens.
Yes.
Gary Lillard.
Yes.
John Bozar.
Yeah, I recuse myself since I didn't participate in that meeting.
Thank you, John. David Glabe.
Yes.
Nicole Howard.
Yes.
Marianne Miesner.
Yes.
Justin Rock.
Yes.
Greg Amer, excuse me.
Yes.
Matt Barber.
Yes.
Edward Henninger.
Yes.
Ashley O'Toole.
Yes.
Corrine Ditto.
Yes.
Thank you.
All right. So that was the only item we need to do here. I will, as we work our way through these first three meetings, there'll be a slight pause before I convene the next meeting, so we have some clear break. With that, I'm going to adjourn the Urban Renewal District Budget Committee meeting and move into the next meeting here shortly. So give it about 5 seconds and then we'll start. So I call to order the City of Grande Budget Committee for regular session and ask for a roll call, please.
Steve Clemens,
Here.
Gary Lillard,
Here.
John Bozar,
Here.
David Glabe,
Here.
Nicole Howard,
Here.
Marianne Miesner,
Here.
Justin Rock,
Here.
Greg Ammer,
Here.
Matt Barber,
Here.
Edward Henninger.
Here.
Scott McConnell is excused. Ashley O'Toole. We know he's here. Corinne Dudo.
Here.
And Matt is
All right.
excused as well.
Okay. If it's not obvious by now, everyone is participating via electronic communications. I'm hopeful that that will soon change and we can be back in the council chambers. As with the last meeting, we have one item on the agenda, and that is approval of the Budget Committee meetings from our May 10th and 11th meetings. That's for the city general enterprise and other fund budgets. And we have a consent agenda, as with the last one, unless someone wishes to pull that item for discussion on content or typos. We can just take this as a consent agenda, and I'll accept a motion.
I will make a motion that I'll move that we approve that consent agenda as it was presented.
Second.
All right, looks like Ashley O'Toole made the motion, Marianne Miesner seconded. I'll ask for a roll call vote, please.
Steve Clemens,
Yes?
Gary Lillard,
Yes.
John Bozar.
Again, I recuse myself since I didn't participate in that meeting.
Thank you. Nicole Howard,
Yes.
Marianne Miesner,
Yes.
Justin Rock,
Yes.
Greg Ammer,
Yes.
Matt Barber,
Yes.
Edward Henninger,
Can't hear you, Ed.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Ashley O'Toole,
Yes.
and Corinne Dudo.
Yes.
Sandra, I think you missed me. I'll be a yes as well.
Oh, I'm sorry. Thank you.
Sorry about that, Dave.
Sorry, I apologize.
All right, so that's the only item we have for the Budget Committee regular session. Members of the Budget Committee, I want to thank you for your participation and engagement both in May and this evening. You're welcome to stick around for the remaining meetings, or if you have other things to do with your evening, you can journey onwards. With that, I will adjourn our let's see. Yes, I'm looking at the wrong notes. I'm going to adjourn the Budget Committee regular session meeting and give a short pause, and then we'll come back to our third meeting this evening.
Thank you. Good night, everyone.
All right, I'm called to order the regular session of the Urban Renewal Agency for June 2nd, 2021. All members of the agency are participating via electronic communications, and I ask for a roll call, please.
Steve Clemens,
Yes?
Gary
Here.
Lillard,
Here.
John Bozar,
Here.
David Glabe,
Here.
Nicole Howard,
Here.
Marianne Miesner,
Here.
Justin Rock,
Here.
Greg Ammer,
Here.
Matt Barber.
Actually, they're not members of the agency, so I don't know that we call them into the meeting. Is that right?
That's correct.
Okay,
It's only,
I did not
it's
know
only
that.
it's only the agency and the council for the next two meetings.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. So we're all in. I think we're all in.
Yep, you're all in.
Okay, did we
They're all here.
get you, Dave? Okay, all right. So we have a consent agenda with two items. One is the approval of regular session minutes from March 3rd, and the second item of the consent agenda is accepting Exhibit A for fiscal year 2021-22, which is an agency-city intergovernmental agreement. Unless anyone would like to pull one of those items, we can entertain them both as a consent agenda. Do we have a motion? I can make it. Go ahead. Go ahead.
Who's gonna do it?
You.
I move that we accept the consent agenda as presented.
Second.
Okay.
I was,
Justin
loo-
made,
I was
Justin-
looking for the attachment for the Exhibit A and I didn't see it. Am I missing?
anybody else miss that? I'm not finding it either, so maybe there was.
So I think we need to amend that consent agenda.
So you do not, so in the consent agenda tab, item 3B, there should be an Exhibit A attached to it.
3B?
Item 3B is in the consent agenda. So 3A is the minutes.
Oh,
And
and
then-
then, okay.
And then 3B is the consider Exhibit A, Urban Renewal Agency action form. And then attached to that is Exhibit A.
Okay, I found it now.
Did I mess up then, Robert, on this one?
No, you're fine.
Okay. So we have a motion and a second. So the motion came from Justin and Nicole seconded. Can I have a roll call vote, please?
Steve Clemens,
Yes.
Gary Lillard,
Yes.
John Bozard.
I-
You're going to abstain?
I think I was at that meeting, so I'll say yes.
Okay. David Glave,
Yes.
Nicole Howard,
Yes.
Marianne Meisner,
Yes.
and Justin Rock.
Yes.
Okay, motion carries. Robert, any public comments to read into record this evening?
No, thank you, Mayor.
We have a public hearing this evening. Make sure I check my notes. So that is to consider, wait a second, wrong one. So there's a public hearing this evening. I open that public hearing for the fiscal year 2021-22 Renewal District budget as approved by the Urban Renewal District Budget Committee on May 10th, 2021. That public hearing is open. Robert, could we have a staff report?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the agency. As was mentioned, the Budget Committee met on May 10th and reviewed the Urban Renewal Agency's proposed budget and approved it as presented and forwarded it to the agency with a recommendation for approval and adoption. A couple of just highlights in that particular budget. We are doing an under levy, so the amount of taxes that would be certified is $62,078,898. We're retaining all of our core economic development projects and programs. We actually have a little bit more money in available for capital expenditures in this one than we did the previous year, specifically the non-business park call for projects is $350,000 based on the conversation that we had at the retreat. Ironically, we only received 2 applications for call for projects this year, which we just got those in. So I would mention that piece. And be happy to answer any questions that anybody may have regarding this budget.
Any questions for Robert on the urban renewal budget? Urban renewal district budget? And these are questions from agency members. Any public testimony, Robert, that we received for this?
No, not for the mineral.
Okay. So if we've got no questions for Robert and there's no public testimony, I close the public hearing on the fiscal year 2021-2022 Urban Renewal District budget and invite agency discussion, or I'll entertain a motion. No discussion, no questions. Seems like we're moving forward. My only concern is, and I don't know whether this is legitimately a concern, but we didn't get the call for projects that we normally get, and maybe that's a side effect of COVID, or businesses are being a little conservative this year, and hoping that things will improve much over the next few months. That's my only concern, but it sounds like we've got a solid program moving forward, and that's the only thing I have to say. Anyone else or a motion?
I move that the proposed resolution adopting the fiscal year 2021-2022 Urban Renewal District budget be read by title only, put to vote and passed.
I'll second.
All right, we have a motion from Mary Ann, a second from Nicole. Any other conversation or discussion? Sandra, could I have a reading of the proposed resolution by title only, please?
Yes, I apologize. I did not have that. Almost there. A resolution of the City of LaGrande Urban Renewal Agency of the City of LaGrande, Union County, Oregon, adopting fiscal year 2021 through 2022 budget, making appropriations and levying taxes.
All right, we've had a reading of the resolution and we have a motion. Roll call vote, please.
Steve Clements,
Yes?
Barry Lillard,
Yes.
John Bozar,
Again, I recuse myself since I didn't participate in the budget process.
Nicole Howard.
Yes, and don't forget David Glabe.
Oh, I'm sorry, David. David Glabe,
Yes.
Mary Ann Meisner,
Yes.
and Justin Rock.
Yes.
Motion carries.
All right. We have no items of,
Steve, before you go on, I was just wondering if some call for projects or some project comes up through the year, we still have money in there to do that though, even if there isn't. How much money did we set aside for call for projects this year, Robert?
350,000 for the non-business park.
Yeah.
And Marianne, if we could cover that not during this agenda item, I can talk in a little bit more detail about what that looks like.
Oh, okay. No problem. Thank you.
all right, moving on then. No items of unfinished business, no new business. District manager comments.
Thank you, Mayor, members of the agency. Speaking of call for projects, so we did only receive 2 applications. One of them was incomplete, and they have until the end of this week to submit it. Typically, we do not allow under the policy out of cycle requests. So in answer to your question, Mary Ann, that would not be a situation. The good news is those dollars are urban renewal dollars that are dedicated there and just remain in the fund balance. So it's not like they're lost or there's any adverse impact in that regard. So, and again, it's a weird and unusual year. We do have the ability within the agency budget, if the agency wanted to initiate a project, we do have some dollars in that would be dedicated to that, depending upon what happens with the EDA grant. there's certainly $100,000 there that could be brought to bear on something if the agency were to identify something. The other thing I just wanted to mention is the agency is aware of this, but Christine Jarski has tendered her resignation. Her last day will be the 17th of this month. She's done a phenomenal job for us, and she will very much be missed. And there's a lot of businesses that have really benefited. There are a lot of great projects that occurred under her watch. And I see she lit up her video, and she might want to take a moment just to say hi.
Yeah, I sent out a little email this morning, but this has just been an amazing experience working with you all. And especially the past year has been so difficult, and we had some tough choices to make. And I appreciate you acting so quickly to approve funding to help our local businesses. And most of them have survived and will be moving forward. I do have a few projects that will be wrapping up and coming to you over the next month or so. One of which is the business retention expansion business, BRE. Sorry, business retention expansion survey. So I won't be around when that's presented, but really good information coming out of that will assist all of our partner organizations as they move forward, as well as help you in some of your future decision making. So again, it's just been such an honor and a privilege to work with you all. And I'm excited about my future and excited about your future with the City of LeGrand as well. So thank you.
Anything else, Robert?
You may not have seen it. I sent an email out late this afternoon talking about the fact that with only 2 applications for the call for projects, we'll still go through the program of scoring and scheduling the presentation to the agency for funding approval. And that will also be done in conjunction with the URAC. Currently, we have 2 members of the URAC. One's term expired, but you'll see on your July agenda an action to reappoint her. So we will have 3, which gives us a quorum on the URAC. So they'll be involved in that process as well. The challenge that we have is dates when people are around, because of the summer, people tend to scatter a bit. And we're looking at potentially just doing that in conjunction with the July 7th City Council meeting. It'll make for a slightly longer evening potentially, but it would eliminate the necessity to have a second meeting. The other date that we would be looking at would be July 12th, because we would like to get these done and approved in July so people know what their funding situation is going forward. And I know that on both of those dates, we're down at least 2 of the agency members. So if anyone is particularly interested in wanting to make sure that they're part of that process, and you know you're not going to be here on one of those 2 dates, this would be an opportunity to advocate for the other date to consider. So any thoughts on that from the agency?
I think it makes sense to combine a regular session and a review of the call for projects. Would we also vote on them at that time? So we would just have an agenda item for presentation, discussion, and then voting?
Yeah, we would do it essentially the same way that we have done it in the past, where it's in the past it's been a special session joint meeting with the URAC. We would structure it that way. We would still do approval of minutes and that sort of thing by the agency only, but for the portion of the meeting where we're doing the call for projects, the URAC would have the opportunity to participate in that conversation in the vote. So that would be the only difference, but we would be able to do that. So we'll work really hard to get that done in time for the 7th of July so that we can have that taken care of. And again, if we had a bunch of applications where the ask exceeded the funding, we would certainly look for a day where we could get all 7 of you to participate, but I think this is a little bit of a different circumstance. So I'm a little less worried about making sure that we have everybody. Those that aren't going to be physically here on the 7th will still do their scoring and submit that so that that is taken into account. By the
So
group as a
I'm
whole.
looking at calendar now. We would cancel the June 30th meeting. Is that correct?
Yeah, we already, let me look at this.
Or did we cancel that one already and I forgot to?
We did. Yeah, we canceled that one.
Okay. All right. All right. Anything else, Robert? Anybody else want to comment on Robert's proposal to combine a regular session with a special session to handle the call for projects?
It works for me, Robert. Just to refresh my memory, will that be on Zoom as well?
Potentially, we'll have a little bit more of a conversation about that as a city council in a little while.
Okay, thanks.
Anybody else? Is that it for comments, Robert?
It is. Thank you.
Okay. Agency members, I'll take you in the order that I have you on the screen. Mary Ann, any comments as an agency member?
Right. The only thing I would like to say is we're going to miss Christine, and I wish her well. Like I told her earlier today, I think we shouldn't have accepted her resignation, and so we could have handled it that way. But but we will miss you, Christine. Thank you for your service.
Yeah, thank you.
Nicole, any comments? Okay. Justin? John?
I'm good.
Dave? Gary?
Yeah, I'll just chime in on Mary Ann's comments. I think Christine has done an outstanding job. We've shared an email already, but still would publicly like to wish her well and good luck with her future endeavors.
Thanks, Gary.
And I'll just echo what Mary Ann and Gary, and I think others probably feel the same way. You were here for a short time, relatively, Christine, but you did a tremendous job for moving economic development forward in the city. I know a little bit, you and I chatted yesterday, and I know a little bit about where you're going, and I think it fits perfectly for you. And I'm really happy to see you taking a step in a different direction. So thank you very much.
Hey, Steve, can I say something real quick? Sorry, I had my mouth full of something.
No,
I just
go
want to
ahead,
say
Justin.
Christine, and
Yes,
good luck
Justin.
to you.
Go ahead.
Thanks.
We're good? Okay. I'm going to adjourn the Urban Renewal Agency regular session, take a 5-second pause, and then move into our 4th and final meeting for the evening. So, bit of quiet. All right, I call to order regular session for the City Council of the City of LeGrand for June 2nd, 2021. All members of the council are participating electronically, and I ask for a roll call, please.
Steve Clements,
Here.
Gary Lillard,
Here.
John Bozar,
Here.
David Glabe,
Here.
Nicole Howard,
Here.
Marianne Miesner,
Here.
and Justin Rock.
Here.
All right, moving forward, we have a consent agenda with 4 items: approval of regular session minutes from May 5th, approval of an OLCC license change of ownership. That, for those who are not familiar, that's a liquor license, alcohol license. Awarding a bid for concrete work on the 2001 citywide volunteer LID, or local improvement district. And the 4th item of our consent agenda is to accept Exhibit A for fiscal year 2021-22, which is an intergovernmental agreement between the city and the Urban Renewal Agency. Does anybody want to remove any of those items, or do we just want to handle it as a package?
I would like to ask a question about the OLCC license. I don't know if I don't really need to have it removed. I just would like to ask question.
If it's a quick question, we might be able to cover it without pulling it.
Okay,
Okay.
I just want to know, is it common that we give an OLCC license to somebody who lives in another city for one of our establishments here?
Yeah, it is. It's all based on where the facility is, not the ownership.
I'm saying,
It's very common.
okay, so then who is responsible for following the regulations if they're not here? I mean, it'd be their manager.
The license holder is still responsible for it.
Okay, even though they're not here to oversee it.
Correct.
Okay, that's all I wanted to ask.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you for that, Marianne. So we have a consent agenda. Anybody want to give me a motion on this one?
I move that we approve the consent agenda as presented.
Second,
All right, so we have a motion from Gary, a second from Marianne. Roll call vote, please.
Steve Clements,
Yes.
Gary Lillard,
Yes.
John Bozar,
Yes.
David Glade,
Yes.
Nicole Howard,
Yes.
Marianne Mietzner,
yes.
Justin Rock.
Yes.
Okay, very good. Moving on, public comments. Robert, anything received that we need to know about?
Yeah, Mayor, thank you. We do have one item that was received, which was a request for a proclamation for official Pride Day for the city of LeGrand. And I'm going to ask the city recorder to go ahead and read that. And then during council comments, the council can have a discussion as to whether or not the city wants to have the mayor sign this or potentially modify it. That's consistent with the way we would do things if we were in person, where someone could come to public comments and ask something of the city. And then if the council decided to take that up for discussion, it would occur during the council comments portion of the agenda. So I'll ask Sandra to go ahead and read that, and then we can talk about it during the council comments portion. Thank you.
Okay, title, Proclamation of Official Pride Day for the City of LeGrand, Oregon. Whereas the City of LeGrand is welcoming community and an exceptional place to live, learn, work, play, and raise a family. And whereas the City of LeGrand recognizes the importance of equality and freedom, and whereas the nation was founded upon and is guided by a set of principles that include that every person has been created equal, that each has rights to their life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness, and that each shall be accorded the full recognition and protection of the law. And whereas the City of LeGrand's lesbian, gay, bisexual, and transgender LGBT community are a vital part of all fields and professions and contribute to a strong community. And whereas the City of LeGrand is dedicated to fostering acceptance of all its citizens in preventing discrimination and bullying based on sexual orientation and gender identity. And whereas the City of LeGrand is strengthened by and thrives upon the rich diversity of ethnic, cultural, racial, gender, and sexual identities of its residents, and of which contribute to the vibrant character of our city. And whereas the Centers of Disease Control, CDC, recognize that the LGBT teens are at high risk to be the victims of violence and have increased suicide rates. And whereas it is imperative that young people in the community, regardless of sexual orientation or gender identity, feel valued, safe, empowered, and supported by their peers, educators, and community leaders. Now, therefore, I, Steve Clements, Mayor of the City of LeGrand, Oregon, and on behalf of the LeGrand City Council, hereby proclaim and recognize June 4th as Lesbian, Gay, Bisexual, and Transgender LGBT Pride Day in the City of LeGrand, Oregon.
And that was submitted and written by Brittany Campbell, Eastern Oregon LGBTQ plus Coalition. And that was it for public comments, Mayor.
All right, so we will have a conversation about this when we get to council comments. So keep that in mind. I think, Robert, you had Sandra send out a hard copy or electronic copy of this, so you should all have it in your mailbox. Any other public comments?
No, sir.
All right. Public hearings. Let me get my notes out here real quick. We have 2 public hearings. The first one is to consider adopting the fiscal year 2021-22 budget. And I announce that the public hearing is now open and ask for a staff report.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. The resolution that you have, there's actually 2. One is adopting the budgets, and the other one is receiving state shared revenues. We're required to do the resolution on the state shared revenues to receive them. And normally what we would provide to you would be the budget as was approved by the budget committee without any changes. In this particular case, we are asking that the city council do make a change to the budget, and specifically to add $225,000 of revenues and expenses related to a joint project to install artificial turf at Optimist Field. This would be in the grants and donations fund. Literally, as the budget committee hearings were underway, there were meetings and discussions related to expanding the project, which the city last year had included $25,000 for making improvements to add artificial turf. There was a lot of discussion between EOU and the school district, prompted by the school district, about also including the softball field. And there's a lot of community interest in this project. And suddenly that increased the price tag substantially. Because the property belongs to the city, we really should be the ones that would let the contract for the work. And that means that we would need to run those dollars from the city or from the school district and from EOU through our grants and donations. And so we would have to have an appropriation to do that. Unfortunately, the timing was such that we didn't have this information full and complete while the budget committee was meeting. Otherwise, we would have presented that as a change to the proposed budget so they could have acted on it. We do have letters in hand from the school district and from EOU committing to this level of funding, depending on how the bids come in. And so we would ask that the council approve that one change in the grants and donations to reflect that additional receipt of revenues and then the expenditure appropriation ability to do that project. Other than that, the budget is as was approved by the budget committee. And I'll be happy to answer whatever questions you may have.
So Robert, my question is then, if the council approves of this change for a second field, would the motion read as amended?
No, because we prepared the resolution under the assumption that the council would approve that change.
Okay.
If you
All right.
don't want to do it, then it would have to be as amended and we would have to
Okay.
adjust it. Oh, the other thing that I included in the council action form, but I neglected to mention, this is within the 10% increase in a budget that is allowed under Oregon budget law without having to re-engage the budget committee. So we do not have to do an additional public hearing. It's within your authority to do.
Okay. Any council comments or questions for Robert on this, on the budget? I see Mary Ann, you got your hand up.
I did, but it was really, I was going to ask Stu something about this. And that was, I know I talked to him once before I sent him an email asking him how they were going to protect the field from people driving out there. And I don't know if that's the place to put this, but I'd like him to be able to assure us that those fields will be maintained and kind of secure.
Sure, Mr. Mayor, would you like that now or later?
Yeah, please do now.
Okay, sure. The plan is to fully fence. One field's already fenced. That's Optimus Field. Community Field would be the other one that we'll fence along with the project to protect it. We considered the other varsity field that has been ruled out because it's a multi-purpose field with football and other things, and there'd be no way to fence it other than the temporary fencing they currently use. So yeah, they'll both be protected.
Good, thank you. Does that answer it for you, Marianne?
Yes, I just wanted everybody to know that,
Okay,
that
thank you.
the public, that they can't drive their cars out there. We've got it protected so that that won't be cut up like it has been in the past from cars.
Thank you. Any other questions for Robert before I ask for a public any public comment on this? Robert, any public comment from
We did
this?
not receive any public testimony related to the budget.
Okay. So we have no additional comments from the council. I'm going to.
I'd like to make a comment, Mayor.
We don't. Yes, you can make a short comment.
Okay. Greg Amer, Budget Committee. 6 quick reasons why I voted against the budget. This is not a balanced budget because you have to underfund urban renewal. You've been doing that for the last 4 years. You spend, Parks Director says he needs a 3/4 ton pickup. He never justified that expense. What his towing capacity is 7,000 pounds. Any half-ton pickup is capable of pulling 7,000 pounds. And he also, he says he's got 8 pickups already. But there's another pickup running around town that's a half-ton pickup that I don't know where it comes from, so he's got 9 pickups. Here's the picture of the 2017 Ford 3/4 ton that he currently uses to pull the big mower around. Plus, he also has a 2019 Dodge 3/4 ton pickup. Public Works says our water and sewer bills are in the lower 10% of the state. City of Hermiston did a study in 2015 comparing Ontario, Baker, LeGrand, Pendleton, and Hermiston, and their study showed that LeGrand was in the highest water and sewer bills for those 5 communities, similar in size and similar in our region. And the Water Reserve Fund, the Water Reserve Fund, you got $3.8 million. That's enough to do 1.5 new wells. Where is your projection to show that the city of LeGrand's going to grow 20% every 5 years? And we need a new water source. In 2019, Public Works and the Water Department testified before the Budget Committee that there was no need for a new water source in the near future. Number 5, the Building Department has $1.5 million in cash in their account. I asked the Building Department why. He said the state requires them to have 2 years operating income, otherwise they'll take the Building Department away from them. I called the state of Oregon Building Department and I said, does that make any sense to you? And they go, there's no requirement for you to have 2 years operating expenses in your building department. Add up all the cash you've got in all your departments, all your reserves. You got $25 million in cash, but you continue to tell the citizens of LeGrand you don't have enough money to operate. And you go back to this vehicle cost, for Parks Department is 22% more. The example shown by Public Works is they spend 7% more for a half-ton four-wheel drive pickup. And the Building Department, they're up to 87%. The last time they bought a half-ton pickup, they bought a dual cab Dodge diesel pickup for one person to drive around the county. I'd like to know what in the bleep's going on. Thank you.
Anybody want to comment? I will tell you, Mr. Amers, that the Hermiston report is skewed. It does not compare apples to apples. It doesn't compare it doesn't put all of the rates on the same water usage level. And when you do that, there's a report from the state that's a bit more accurate on that basis. I haven't gone through the entire report, but LeGrand is not as bad as that Hermiston study puts it. And I'm not going to get into a conversation about that or debate you on any of the 6 items that you presented. I do appreciate your input on those things. It's worth people hearing. The only other comment I would make is that when you total up ending fund or cash balances for different funds across the city, you need to remember that some of those funds are in enterprise funds, and some of them are general funds. And if Robert can correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think those 2 funds can be mixed. I believe the only way money can flow is from general to enterprise, but not the other direction. And so to say we have $25 million of ending fund balance, and so the building department and all public works funds are enterprise, that money is not available for general fund use. It actually makes me feel comfortable to know that we have a substantial amount of money in our water reserve fund in case we do need to make a new well. We wouldn't have to raise water rates because that money is available to pay for the well already, versus other communities that don't have that kind of reserve, and they have to raise rates substantially. So unless there's any other comments from council, I'm going to close the public hearing for the 2021-22 fiscal year and entertain a motion for the proposed resolution. Do you have a motion for that?
I move that the proposed resolution adopting the fiscal year 21-22 budget levying taxes be read by title only, put to a vote and passed as presented.
Second.
All right, so we have a motion by Nicole, a second from Justin. Any additional comments by the council? All right, could I have a reading, Sandra, of the proposed resolution by title only?
A resolution of the City Council of the City of LeGrand, Union County, Oregon, adopting the fiscal year 2021 through 2022 budget, making appropriations and levying taxes.
All right. Could I have a roll call vote, please?
Steve Clemens,
Yes.
Gary Lillard,
Yes.
John Bozar,
Again, I recuse myself from the budget process, but I do want to say I really do support that change that Robert made for the Parks Department. I think that's a great addition.
David Clave,
Yes.
Nicole Howard,
Yes.
Marianne Miesner,
Yes.
and Justin Rock.
Yes.
Okay, we have a second motion to consider on this agenda item, and that is to receive state revenues, and I need a motion for that resolution. A motion for the second resolution, please.
I move that the proposed resolution election to receive state revenues by read by title only, put to a vote and pass.
Second.
All right, so I think that was a motion from Justin and a second battle between Marianne and Gary. So could I have any discussion or comments on that? This is pretty de rigueur stuff. Could I have a reading the proposed resolution by title only, please?
A resolution of the City Council of the City of LeGrand, Union County, Oregon, declaring the city's intent to receive state revenues.
All right, we've had a reading. We have a motion, second, and a reading of the title only. Roll call vote, please.
Steve Clemens,
Yes.
Gary Lillard,
Yes.
John Bozar,
Yes.
David Glade,
Yes.
Nicole Howard,
Yes.
Marianne Miesner,
Yes.
and Justin Rock.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Okay, very good. The second public hearing this evening is first reading for an ordinance to vacate public right-of-way. And that is Mike Boquist. I think he's with us still. If it looks like he just unmuted. So, Mike, oh, wait 1 second. I'm going to open the public hearing and ask that the rules of order for this public hearing be read in their entirety. So, Sandra, take it away. You're muted. Thank
Sorry,
you.
are we reading the whole ordinance or just by title?
No, this is the rules of order.
Rules of order.
Yeah. Let me
I'm sorry,
see.
you caught me off guard.
So this is the second public hearing on the vacation, and on let's see. I don't see the rules of order, Robert.
I'll go grab a set.
Okay.
I'm
Normally
sorry.
don't worry.
I apologize. I'm not familiar with what I'm supposed to be doing.
Okay.
They weren't in her packet. That's not her fault.
Sorry, Steve, that's my fault.
No problem. We've got it covered. Looks like Robert will get some. We'll just take a bit of a pause. That's all.
Mayor, why don't we take a 5-minute recess?
All right, we're going to recess for 5 minutes. I'm coming back promptly at 6:56. right, we should now be live again. Apologize for that little delay. We were starting into the second public hearing. I had opened the public hearing and asked for a reading of the rules of order for the public hearing in their entirety, and I think we now have a copy of those rules. So Sandra, if you would, take it away.
Okay, the rules of order for a quasi-judicial public hearing. The City Council will conduct one quasi-judicial public hearing. These rules of order are applicable to the public hearing of right-of-way vacation, file number 01 vacate 21. The hearing will proceed as follows. 2, the mayor will request the staff report, which includes application criteria and standards for the issue under consideration in the application. As part of the staff report, the applicant may have the opportunity to address the council prior to public testimony. The mayor will then accept public testimony relating to the application. The mayor may state a time limit for testimony. If no time limit is announced, testimony will be limited to 3 minutes. All testimony must be directed towards the applicable criteria. Oregon land use law requires that all issues raised by the participant during the hearing must be sufficiently clear and specific to allow the hearing body and other parties an opportunity to respond to those issues. Failure to raise an issue during the hearing may invalidate a future appeal. The proceedings are being electronically recorded to be converted to written minutes. When testifying, please step to the podium and clearly print your name and address on the speaker sign-in sheet. State only your name before addressing the council. It is not necessary to state your address. Participants will be asked to speak first, then opponents, and then any parties neutral to the application. The opportunity will be provided to parties to clearly clarify any issues raised or to rebut testimony. Proponents first, followed by opponents, then those neutral. 5, in addition, additional documents or new evidence is introduced during the hearing. Any participants may request a continuation of the hearing. Any participant may request that the hearing records be kept open for 7 days to submit additional written evidence or testimony for the purpose of responding to new evidence. Unless waived, the applicant has 7 days to submit a written response. 6, members of the City Council may ask questions of staff or hearing participants at any time. The mayor will then close the hearing or continue the hearing at a specified time and place. 7, all decisions must be based on findings of fact from the staff report or evidence and testimony received which relate to the criteria of the land use decision. 8, an appeal of the City Council decision must be made in writing to the Oregon Land Use Board of Appeals, together with the required fee within 30 days from the date of the final decision. C, a counselor must declare an ex parte or pre-hearing contact, including the person's name and the nature of the discussion, as well as the site visitations. Counselors should declare any personal or financial interest in this matter and may disqualify themselves from participating in the hearing. And then it asks the question, does any counselor wish to make the declaration? D, does anyone in the audience wish to challenge the right of any counselor to hear the matter? Let the record show that.
Hang on a second, Sandra.
Okay.
Do any counselors have a conflict that they would like to declare?
No.
Okay. So we'll let the record reflect that there were no conflicts declared. And also note that all of the pieces of those rules that talk about testifying and testimony would all have been provided in advance in writing as part of this action based on the notices that went out.
So it seems like we need a version of the, I think this may be the first vacation notice that we've had in a while, but we need a version of those rules that are video conference friendly.
Yeah, and Mayor, we'll take care of that. The salient portions of the rules as they apply to testimony that would be received, the appeal process, and the declarations are the most important components of that.
Okay.
So from a technical standpoint, we're okay to proceed with the hearing with those rules.
Very good. So we got a vacation to talk about. I think Mike Boquist is with us, and Mike can give us the staff report. So go ahead, Mike.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor and Council. I apologize for that, I guess, delay in the hearing. I am out of town and I have kind of spotty internet, so I'm going to keep my video off. I think I have good enough internet for sound. So if I cut in and out, please interrupt me and I'll slow down. But this request is a fairly typical right-of-way vacation. It's this is for the west side of Walnut Street. A couple months ago, you passed a resolution that accepted this application and forwarded it to the Planning Commission for a recommendation, and it's back before you tonight for consideration for a first reading of the adopting ordinance. It's a 10-foot right-of-way vacation on the west side of Walnut Street, which is an 80-foot wide right-of-way, and it's proposed to be narrowed down to 70 foot, which if you take a look at the illustration in the staff report, and as well as in the ordinance, you can see the block to the south has already had a 10-foot right-of-way vacation on that west side. And so this request is consistent with the vacation that was done several years ago. I don't have a date on that, but it's consistent with a previous vacation that the city approved. Also on the first page of the order of approval, there's a figure 1 excerpt of the assessor plat that shows the property layout of lots across the street on Walnut, on the east side of Walnut. And this applicant has a desire to divide their property in half to accommodate some additional housing, which our housing needs analysis is promoting. And they would like to divide their property in a manner that's consistent with the lots that are across the street. But because of the lot depth and having a corner lot on the corner of Benton and Walnut, that corner lot would be rather small and would be difficult to develop. And this additional 10 feet would help create a more buildable parcel. So that's the request that is before you. As far as city code and state law, public notice went out to property owners on 200 feet on each side of this vacation, as well as 400 feet on each end. So it was a fairly large oval that was 800 to 1,000 feet long by about 400 to 500 feet wide. And the applicant was required to get 2/3 of those property owners to sign a consent form or a no objection, in which they received 75% signatures. And so this is a valid request. It has received no objections. There's been no concerns expressed by property owners. One condition of approval that's included in the decision order is that the applicant, which is tax lot 1900, the applicant needs to relocate their water meter along Benton so that it remains in the right of way following this vacation. But other than that, it's fairly routine. Do you have any questions of me?
Questions for Mike? It's pretty straightforward stuff. No questions? Robert, any public testimony?
No, we did not receive anything on this one, Mayor.
Okay, very good. Council discussion? All right, then just as a procedural thing, This is the first of two public hearings for this ordinance. The public hearing will be continued at our July 7th meeting. And at that point, the proposed ordinance is scheduled to be read for a second time by title and then considered for adoption, at which point we'll vote. This evening, unless there's additional council discussion or comments, if I could have Sandra read the proposed ordinance for the first time by title only, that'll wrap this item up for the night.
An ordinance of the City Council of the City of LaGrande, Union County, Oregon, vacating the west 10 feet 10 of the Walnut Street public right-of-way between Benton Avenue and Wayne Avenue, all being adjacent to the properties described as being in Township 3 South, Range 38 East of the Willamette Meridian, Section 06AB, Tax Lots 1900 and 2202, LaGrande, Union County, Oregon, and declaring an effective date.
All right. Before we move on, I missed Marianne's hand up in the participants list, and so go ahead, Marianne.
Well, I was just wondering, on page 8 of this, the Planning Commission's responses to it, I see at the conclusion and order, and it's down at the very bottom, is under number 4, the conclusions and order. When it says they met or did not meet and approved or denied, it doesn't say which one the Planning Commission did. And shouldn't it say that?
Sounds like that's a question for Mike.
Right.
Yes, we're sorry.
Can you repeat your question, Marianne?
Okay, on page 8 of the Planning Commission's response, under the conclusions and order, it does not say whether they met or did not meet the requirements established and whether the vote recommended approval or denial.
Oh, sorry. Yes, the Planning Commission did meet last month, and they voted unanimously to recommend approval to the City Council.
Okay, I just thought that needed to be in there.
Yes, I'll correct that for the staff report for the second reading.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
So since we're not voting, I think we can handle that change next month when we come back to this item. Is that correct, Robert?
Yeah, that would normally be cleaned up at the second reading point.
Okay. All right.
A lot of times we put these together and the timing of the Planning Commission actually overlaps with the preparing of the staff report and the agenda item.
Okay. Very good. All right. So moving on, then we have no items of unfinished business, no new business. A note to counselors that Commissioner Scarfo is not available this evening, so he won't be giving us an update. That brings us to staff comments. I see a number of staff members here. Anybody want to make comments? And I see Marianne and Mike have their hands up, so I don't know what Marianne is turning hers off or Mike needs to say something.
Well, I guess that leaves me, doesn't it?
Yes, it
So last Friday, public notice went out for all of the floodplain properties for those that may be impacted by the proposed floodplain changes that the City Council learned about last Monday during a work session. And we're starting to get some feedback on that. So far, it's mostly just folks that are inquiring and looking for more information. But if you do hear any comments from folks or have any questions, please refer them to my office, and we'll do the best we can to help those folks.
All right. Any other staff comments? Not seeing anybody come up. City manager comments.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. A couple things. During the Urban Renewal Agency meeting, we talked about the fact that our Economic Development Director, Christine Jarkey, has tendered her resignation. Literally 15 minutes after she left my office, Kip Robertson, our library director, came in and tendered his resignation. He had an opportunity a number of years ago for a library that was kind of a dream job for him. Timing wasn't good, and it happened to just come open again. And so, as I sometimes give my police chief a hard time about being down too, it looks like at the end of this month I will be down too in terms of directors. But both Christine and Kip have done a phenomenal job in the time that they've been here, and both will be very much missed. So I just wanted to pass that along to you as a council, and that's all I really wanted to touch on. And then we can talk about the I don't know if you want to talk about the council meeting in public during council comments, or do you want to go ahead and do that now under city manager comments?
That the proclamation, you mean?
No, I had sent out an email to the city council talking about options and wanted to have a conversation with the council regarding at what point do we look at meeting in public, and what would that look like in terms of including the public, requiring masks, not requiring masks for those who have been vaccinated, that piece. Why don't we go ahead and do that now since I'm talking about it?
Yes, let's do that. I thought my feeling would be, Robert, if instead of laying out a bunch of protocols or ideas this evening, I think you did some of that already, but I'd like to see something more definitive in terms of what you think we can do. Personally, I want to see us back in chambers as soon as possible with the necessary requirements in place to protect individuals in the public. And I don't know what that looks like. And you know, there are some.
Mayor, I can paint that picture for you if you'd like to do that now. So currently, as the building owner, business owner, if you will, we can do a couple of different things. We've already made the decision in terms of city operations and facilities to require that people continue to wear masks, both the public and staff, regardless of vaccination status. And this is what the state is doing for their facilities, indoor facilities as well. And a lot of that has to do with the resources to check every single person's vaccination status. There's a lot of moving pieces there. And so we're going to continue to enforce everybody has to wear a mask regardless of vaccination status, whether they're an employee or not. We have the ability to have a policy that allows for those that have been vaccinated with proof of vaccination that has to be verified to remove their masks and not socially distance. So I think that there are, for the city council to meet in public or not, one option is to continue to do what we're doing until the rules change regarding masks and whatnot. So we just continue status quo, which we're going to do for the upcoming meetings that we have in June. Those are things that have been publicly noticed in a certain fashion, and it's just in the too hard to do box to try to adjust those. So I think the earliest that we would be able to consider doing something differently and possibly returning to the council chambers would be the July meeting. So if we do look at returning to council chambers, one option is we still require everybody, regardless of vaccination status, to wear masks and socially distance, no exceptions. So that's an option. That would require us to try to figure out some creative seating for folks in the council chambers and staff. We have to have limitations in occupancy that we would have to take into account. but everybody would be required to wear masks and socially distance regardless of vaccination status, the public as well. And I don't think we should have a scenario where the council meets in person, but we exclude the public from the building. That's an option, but I don't think that's a good one. The next option would be to allow council staff and the public, if they show proof of vaccination, then they do not have to wear a mask. Otherwise, they do have to wear a mask and socially distance. So you would have individuals from the public that would have to present their vaccination proof in order to gain entry without a mask. One of the things that I know has occurred in some areas is a little bit of resistance to that concept. And, that was part of the conversation that we had with the staff about our facilities. But I know that there have been instances where people want to try to make a point regarding whether they should or should not be required to wear a mask. And that's just a thing that's out there. Whether we would see that occur here or not, I don't know. But that's part of the dynamic that we're seeing in some places. And anyone who refuses to wear a mask or provide proof of vaccination would not be allowed to attend, no exceptions. And that would include staff, council, the public, everybody. So I think really it's 3 options versus 5. One is continue status quo, at least through the July meeting, and see where things stand. The next one is go ahead and allow people back into council chambers with the occupancy limits, but everybody is still in masks and socially distanced. And finally, allowing those that are vaccinated that show proof to be able to take their masks off and not socially distance for the vaccinated individuals. The others would have to. And so that's kind of a long way around the horn of saying that's kind of the landscape. And for the 2 in-person options, we still have to work through what that occupancy, what the configuration would be. As with all of our meetings, even before the pandemic, elected officials can participate through electronic means. So if a member of the council did not feel comfortable attending in person, and we decided to go back to the in-person meeting, we would go back to those individuals could, I don't know if we would try to figure out a way to do it as a Zoom participation or just a phone participation, but that would always be on the table regardless of what was going on with the pandemic for people that are not able to attend in person for whatever reason, to still participate through electronic means. So Steve, I hope I laid that out for you in the way that you were looking for in terms of what those options mean. And now I'll sit back and let the council kind of chat about it.
All right. So I'm going to reiterate what I'm pretty sure Robert said. 3 options. Status quo, we stay in Zoom just as we're doing now. And I'm assuming that involves requesting public comment on any agenda items be done in writing and submitted before Tuesday at 5 o'clock. That's first item. Second approach would be we go back to council chambers in a socially distanced and masked arrangement, which means that we would have to limit not only our space behind the dais, but we would have to limit the public space as well. But no one would be allowed in without mask and without socially distancing. And then the third and final option is that given proof of full vaccination, people would be admitted to council chambers without mask or social distancing, and otherwise people would have to mask and distance themselves from others in the chambers. So those are the three. I'm comfortable with three if that works for everyone else, but I am up to hearing what other ones has to say. And I see John.
Yeah, I agree with you, Steve. I'm much favor of option 3. I think it's time that we got back to some type of normalcy. So, good option.
Okay. Anyone else?
Gary's got his hand up.
Yep. Go, Gary.
Yeah, I had a council comment that may be of interest on this particular issue. The Community Connection Senior Council had a meeting about a week or so ago, which unfortunately I was not able to attend. However, I am aware that they chose to conduct that meeting in person, but they were requiring people to conform to the current state requirements. That is, they had to be able to demonstrate vaccinations in order to attend. Otherwise, they had to be masked up and prepare to engage in social distancing. So, they've kind of looked at this question themselves, and that's how they chose to proceed with it for whatever that's worth.
Something somewhat related. It sounds identical to our third option that Robert laid out.
Yes.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Mary Ann.
I prefer number 3 also.
Okay. Justin, Dave, Nicole, any thoughts, comments?
I'd go option 3.
Okay.
I'm fine with option 3, but I don't have my vaccine, so I will be wearing a mask.
Okay. Nicole, any comments?
Yeah, I think going back and just keeping everybody masked seems like the best approach. That way you don't get in the weeds about verifying cards and yeah.
All right. So Robert, we've got a majority of people thinking that 3 is okay. But we have some concerns about, how do we do this without making a formal council action since there's no consensus here?
I think a couple things. What I'm hearing is all of the counselors are comfortable being back in a room. So the real question is, do we or don't we have everyone wear a mask? So really, to me, that's what it kind of comes down to.
I think you do, Robert, just to keep it simple. The logistics of checking and verifying seems onerous and probably unnecessary. We can communicate perfectly well with them. So I don't see the problem. And then you can separate the audience if you want. We're fairly distanced up there, but it's not 6 feet. We could work it out.
I would respectfully disagree on how onerous it would be to check things. I think it would be easier during a council. Once councilors would really only have to show proof of vaccination once. And in fact, I thought that was a request that Robert made last week or the week before. Once we've proven ourselves to be fully vaccinated, that sort of opens us up to going maskless. It will be easier to vet people individually coming in who want to attend council meetings during a council meeting, because someone's going to be there in the room, and we could we could station someone at the door and ask for that kind of thing. And I know, it's I don't want to get into a conversation about what it means to want to take a personal stand one way or the other. I would like to think that that's not going to happen, but it is a possibility. And I think that gets to what, Nicole, you're saying, is that if we require everybody to use masks, we can get back in the room, then there's no question. You have to have a mask to be in the room. I'm confident in my in what I'm reading about the vaccinations that I think I would rather be in the council chambers functioning without a mask, if at all possible.
Well, I'm just curious, Robert, who's going to check and how will you enforce?
Well, quite frankly, I think I would task the police to do that, because to me, I'm going to err on the side of caution, which is if somebody refuses to put a mask on, they're going to be told to leave. And they're going to be expected to leave, and they're going to be required to leave. I don't necessarily want the Parks and Rec director or the city recorder to do that. And that screening would be done in the hallway before you even get to the council chambers. And if they don't have proof of vaccination, their options are put on a mask, or they'll be politely asked to leave the premises. So that's how we would execute it.
I find that we don't have, on a general basis, a lot of public that coming in to the meetings. A lot of times there's just staff in the council. So I don't think it's going to be a big issue. Staff would only have to prove it one time. Councilors would prove it one time. So you don't only have the few public people who come in. And I don't think a lot of times, like I said, at the meetings, we have any public people coming in. And there are times we do, depends on the agenda, I know that. But I go with no masks.
Gary,
number 3.
Right, Gary, you've got your hand up.
Yeah, I'm a little bit inclined to agree with Nicole. I mean, if we pursue Robert's suggestion and have the police involved, that would certainly make it probably easier and better. I would not be a bit surprised to have somebody take a personal stand that it's somehow against their constitutional rights or whatever. It could be a bit awkward, which would be easy to get around by just requiring masks. I mean, they're not hard to wear. I've certainly not found it difficult. So I think we do need to give that a bit of consideration. Do we want to have to deal with that kind of situation if it arises? And of course, we don't know, but I wouldn't be surprised.
Dave?
So my thoughts on this are, I think, unfortunately, though, if you're talking about requiring masks, I think you have to also social distance. And so then we get into the issue of spacing. You can't do masks but no social distancing unless you're checking vaccine cards, in which you can say, oh, everybody's going to wear a mask, but if you have vaccine, then you don't have to social distance. Now you're back into the same scenario where you're checking cards and you're going to do that. So my thoughts personally, I think, as a business owner, we've had this plenty of times, patients coming in, not wanting to wear a mask, not happy about it. Some of them, throwing a little bit of a tough about it. I think we've been around the block enough times in the last year. It's not a big deal. I think everybody knows what's going on. Yes, we may have somebody try to make a stance. I think, we make sure that the public is keenly aware of what the requirements are, of the fact that, I think, yeah, if you have a police officer at the door, you're done. Although I would say that Stu is maybe slightly more intimidating than most of our local police officers. But those are just my thoughts. I think the science is good on the vaccines. Again, as a medical professional, I review that. I try to keep on abreast of it. I understand the concerns about trying to enforce vaccination card checking. Personally, my vote is I'm willing to take that risk of somebody, making a statement about their rights and their feelings because I think there's only a small chance that happens. There's a huge chance that I think there's a benefit of meeting in person and doing this face to face. I feel personally that these meetings suffer because of the digital arena that we're in.
So Robert, Mike raise a question here is, this is a public, assume we go back to council meetings without masks, but we have someone, a police officer at the door checking for valid vaccination proof or masking. Are there any, because it's a public meeting, are there any potential conflicts of law that by rejecting someone or denying them entry because they're not masked or they're not vaccinated? I mean, we're treading into some very odd waters here, I think, between having public access and denying it.
Yeah, so the governor's position on this is very clear, that we can bar someone from the facility if they refuse to provide proof of vaccination or wear a mask. That's very clear.
Okay.
Just as it's very clear that we can't not check to make sure that if they're unmasked, that they have the vaccination card.
Okay.
So what I hear from the council is we want to get back in the room. We'll need to take a look at some of the configuration and spacing piece. I think we'll have to do like the Mariners, and we would have to create a fully vaccinated section and a not so vaccinated section. And there are still some occupancy limits, and when you get to that limit, you can't let anybody else in. So we would have some stuff that we would have to sort out. We'll go ahead and take a look at what that configuration looks like. For the counselors, it would be nice if you've been fully vaccinated, if you could get a copy of your card into Anita so we can just check that box. Or if you're not vaccinated and won't be fully vaccinated by the July 7th meeting, you can shoot me an email and just let me know that so we know not to look for a card from you. We'll need to figure the same thing out for the staff. We'll have a separate conversation with the directors about what, if anything, we might want to do on the immediate horizon with our advisory commissions. But I think for right now, the only meetings that we will look at having a policy that allows people to participate without masks if they have vaccination status will be the July 7th council meeting. We'll see how that goes, and then we'll make a determination of what we might want to do going forward.
Okay. So it sounds like the soonest we would be gathering, and maybe the easiest way, because when we do work sessions, we're at tables, and that gives us some social distancing capability. It does not sound possible to have our July meeting face to face.
No, I think we can do the July meeting, Steve. My target will be to have the July meeting be in council chambers.
Okay.
But we've got a special meeting coming up in June that will be virtual. We've actually noticed that as such. So nothing in the month of June will be in person, and our target will be that July 7th meeting.
Okay.
And as we kind of figure out the configuration, I'll share information with the council on what that looks like, just to keep you informed. But we'll plan on the July 7th meeting.
Okay. Does that sound okay for people? All right.
Okay.
Anything else, Robert? Any other?
Not from me. I think talking about the proclamation.
Exactly.
Piece.
So I'm gonna lead off things, and I'll lead us into the proclamation discussion. But the first thing I wanted to mention outside of that is that Robert and Gary and I met virtually with the president of the Boise City Council, Lane Clegg, Clegg. Hope I pronounced that right, and Dave Strommeyer, I think that's his name. He is the president of the Missoula County Commission. And we talked about their efforts to coordinate a regional, what they're calling the Greater Northwest Railroad Working Group, with the intent of bringing back passenger line rails through northern Washington, Idaho, and Montana, and the Pioneer Run, which goes from Portland to Salt Lake City. It was a very interesting and productive half hour. I have some materials that Elaine sent to me. I'll be glad to share them with you when I have them all together. And the email that I had today, she talked about an upcoming electronic or Zoom conference with a number of congressional leaders to talk about how this Greater Northwest Working Group, Railroad Working Group would coalesce. There are other working groups throughout the country, and then they've been very, very successful at getting funding and improving passenger rail services in their region. So I wanted to bring that piece up. If you have any questions, give me a shout and I'll tell you more about that meeting. The Pride Proclamation, I was contacted. First off, I want to sort of give you some perspective of this. Apparently, June is Pride Month, and it's not just something that's been requested for LeGrand, but it happens all over the country. I was contacted by Brittany middle of last week with this idea of a proclamation. I told her that we had a city council meeting coming up, that normally the mayor can just make proclamations. And as you know, I have done that in the past. But after talking with Robert a little bit more about this, since we've not ever had a proclamation for a Pride Day or a Pride Month, both of us felt that it would be better to bring it to council and get your thoughts on this proclamation. And the additional element, I did notice that the mayor of Pendleton signed a similar proclamation, but back in May. So it's something that other local communities are doing. I only wish that that this had been brought to us later or earlier in May, so that we'd had more time to kind of talk about it, or even in May, so that we could make June designate either the day or the month of June as Pride Day. But it came to me late, and so here we are with it. With that, I'll open it up. You have electronic copies of the proclamation, and Sandra read it out in total. Thoughts? I need your input. How to move forward with this? Does anyone? I don't see anybody's hand up. Go ahead, John. Go ahead.
Yeah, I don't think I'm really in favor of that type of a proclamation. I think it opens up a can of worms where any other group is going to come before us. Some we might agree with, some we might not agree with, and want another proclamation for themselves. So I really don't think it's in our best interest. I don't think it's the best interest of the community to do so.
Anyone else?
I tend to agree with John on this. If they would just say, I mean, I agree with part of it, because part of it was saying that everybody should be treated equally without any bias, without any prejudice. I agree with that 100%. But to single out one particular group, I don't agree with. And I never got the copy because my city computer is still down. So I didn't get the proclamation in the email.
I agree with Mary Ann and John. You know, I don't think we need to focus on any group. All of us should be equal. I don't think we should have any more division than we already have.
Okay, Nicole, and then Gary.
Well, maybe not surprisingly, I think it's a fine proclamation to do. We do proclamations for other groups. We've done them for veterans. We could comb the minutes and find that there have been a number of groups we've pointed to, and June has been Pride Month in this country since 99 to 2000. I think it was the first year, honoring kind of the Stonewall riots. And I don't think there's anything wrong with the city saying we believe in tolerance to not just one group, but a lot of people who are marginalized, targeted. So it seems fairly innocuous to me, and I would certainly support it.
Gary?
Yeah, I can only speak for myself, having kind of a unique perspective on it. I have known most of these family members in the case involved. We all, I think, to some extent know Lola as a city employee, the mother. I also know Joe Bell, the family father, who was a coach of one of my son's football teams when he was in grade school. Their older son, Dustin, was a classmate of my son's. I did not, unfortunately, know Jaden, but I would find it very difficult to oppose something like that. I mean, if a young person is bullied to the point they kill themselves, I don't care what the issue is. That's just plain wrong. That's just plain wrong. And so for that reason, if no other, I would tend to support this proclamation.
Okay. Dave, any thoughts?
I don't have a problem with it. I guess, I share a little bit of the concern that's been expressed, just as far as it, for me, it's just, more of an inconvenience if we label this day and this month this and this day this and this month, official whatever day. But as far as the proclamation goes, I mean, frankly, I think it is important to understand. I mean, there are some groups that have been marginalized in the past more than others. And the LGBT group is one of those. And I firmly support making a statement of tolerance as a city, because we care about all of our citizens. And so I don't have a problem with it. I think if we want to say, well, maybe we don't want to declare an official day because we don't want to, make an official day, that fine. But I certainly don't oppose making a statement about, standing with those who are, again, who've been targeted and marginalized in communities in the past, ours included.
Okay. So, Robert, I need your input on process, because normally the mayor has some ability to make these proclamations, and what I'm hearing this evening is a split council on this, and I would be the deciding vote, and I'll come out and say I agree with the way Dave has put this, and also Nicole. We need to demonstrate tolerance for distinctly marginalized groups, and I think the proclamation does that pretty well. So, procedurally, what do we do at this point?
Sure. Yeah, and thanks, Mayor. And I think that part of the reason that the mayor and I engaged in the discussion about this is the last time a mayor of LeGrand took a position related to this topic, it was Mayor Picorni, where he had made a personal comment about his views on his personal Facebook page, and it just absolutely exploded. National news, and there were a lot of hateful things said towards Dan and his family, and because of that, And because this is not something that has ever been done before, and as evidenced by the conversation of the council, this really was something that the council as a whole needed to have a conversation about. And so I think that one of the things that we could do is to remove the reference to recognizing a specific date. We could adjust the language in this to reflect it as being more generic, and perhaps to expand a little bit, being tolerant of other groups as well. I don't think that it would be appropriate to completely remove the references that are tied to Pride Month, because I don't think that's what was being asked of the council. And so I think that we could include some stuff to make it a little more inclusive than what it is, without losing the overall intent. In terms of process, ideally, I think reaching consensus by the council would be the best way to go on this. Certainly, you could take a vote on whether or not to do it, but my suggestion would be that consensus would probably be a much more appropriate way for the council to come to conclusion on this, is the best advice and input I can give you, Mayor.
Okay, thank you.
So Steve, can I just jump in and say maybe there's, I mean, I think it's at June 4th, right? Just Friday. Yes. It seems kind of arbitrary. I don't think, I think there's maybe one event planned in the city that's relatively small. It's not like, you know, a big parade that I know of. And it is nationally Pride Month, the whole month of June. I mean, it's all over everything. Just use Google today and it has a little pride flag. So I don't see a problem just making it the month. And then we're not making anything new. We're just saying, yeah, we align with these values of tolerance and support for people in the community.
You know, and I wish I had the proclamation from Pendleton in front of me. It was a little more generic than the one that we have that's been presented to us, and it was expressing acceptance and tolerance, as Dave has mentioned. But I think there are some elements in there I think that are a little bit smoother in terms of their presentation. I'd like there to be consensus as well before we take any action on this, and I don't want. I'm not really comfortable just unilaterally doing the proclamation, and that's why I brought it to council. So, Marianne, I see you're unmuted. I'm assuming you want to say something.
Well, I kind of like what Robert was talking about, saying if you can change some of the language. I mean, I believe in tolerance for everybody. I don't care, you know, I think that the majority of us don't. I don't care if somebody is gay or lesbian or bi or anything. I just think tolerance should be our whole overall theme. We should accept everybody the way they are. And nobody should be bullied. I just want to accept all of it. And I don't like to just point out certain group. The tolerance should go across everybody in the Grand.
And I agree with that. I think the focus and the ask for here is just to align with both national and state movements on the acceptance of the LGBT community in the context of June as that month. And so I think that's the alignment. And I think to sort of water down the proclamation for everyone So that it misses that mark. It misses that desire. So, Robert,
Yeah, Mayor, I think that, based on what Mary Ann said, and I know that there's been some sharing of proclamations this afternoon on the city manager's listserv. If the council as a whole was comfortable, I'd be happy to work with the mayor on crafting this in such a way that it still acknowledges and highlights the Pride Month to kind of mirror the national piece, include some reference to wider tolerance, but definitely to keep the LGBT element of it, because that is the month that we're talking about. I think we can come up with something that I think would be kind of a compromise, is not the right word, but takes into account the importance of being tolerant of everyone, but not missing the mark in terms of June as the national month as it pertains to LGBT.
Okay.
Is everybody good with that? The other option would be we could craft some language, put it together for future council discussion, that we'd have to have I think we'd have to either do it as an add-on to the special meeting that we're doing later in June, or perhaps to do something in July that would be like a monthly designation going forward.
Yeah. Gary, you see you're unmuted.
Yeah, I think it's fine to work with Robert to come up with some language you could craft. I think as you do so, it would be good to bear in mind that, yeah, we certainly are looking for a tolerance for everybody, but let's not lose sight of the fact that some of us, due to our position, our mainstream position in society, encounter a lot less of that kind of opposition than some other groups do. Let's not be naive here.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. I'll work with Robert on the language for something. I'll round up the Pendleton proclamation, and we might be able to use that as a template and share it with the rest of you. So.
And I support that too. And I did want to say, I'm not in that different of a position as most of you, but I have a middle schooler. And so I'm on the ground and I see this regularly, and it is heartbreaking what's going on with these kids. And it's real. And I know I would love it if we accepted everybody, but kids aren't there. That's not the message they're getting. And it's just really hard to watch. So I think having civic leaders just say, hey, we're on board with this, you matter. I think there's power in that.
Okay, thank you. All right, I'm gonna move forward with drafting language with Robert, and if necessary, I'm either going to sign it and put it out there, or we'll bring it back depending on what Robert and I think about it. All right, I don't have anything else unless people want to talk more about this. I'm going to go in order of people on the screen. Mary Ann, council comments. Nicole, anything?
I'm good.
Justin, any comments? All right, John?
I'm good.
Okay, Dave? And Gary?
Nothing. Thank you.
Okay, then.
Wrap up. Have something. I would like to thank Kip for all of his service that he's done for the city, and wish him well on his new position.
Yeah. Well, I would wish him well, but he's going to Tetons.
I know.
Jackson Hole, and
beautiful place to go to.
It's exceptional, and I'm sure he's going to enjoy his time there. Except the winters are long, really long. If he thinks that they were bad here, that's a whole different grade of winter there. With that, I'll adjourn our meeting, and we'll see you on the 14th. Good night.
Thanks, everybody.